Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with us. We kind of deal with these queries, especially with Startup Magazine. We get a lot of questions about I have an innovative idea. I am an entrepreneur. So could you help us elaborate first of all to conceptually understand the difference between an entrepreneur and a startup? These basic understandings, if you could help us develop those.
Sure. And you run Startup Magazine?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's pretty good. So let's start with what is an entrepreneur. So entrepreneur basically runs a new business. What constitutes new varies. That definition varies. Is it 10 years? Is it 5 years? Is it revenue of $1 million, $10 million? But just let's say it's a new business. So that's an entrepreneur. Now, a new business can be of two fundamental types. One is a traditional business, such as a restaurant, regular IT services company, or a gym, or a web development company, or it can be innovative, meaning doing something new and risky, a new business model, a new technology, developing a new market. So the dynamics of the two kinds of businesses are very different. For example, the first one may be a lifestyle business, maybe run on credit, tries to get to profit as quickly as possible, while a startup may take on equity investment and take several years to turn a profit because it's developing a new product or a new market. So these are the two differences, and I think associated with this is the concept of innovation. Now, what is innovation? Now, innovation is the transformation of an idea or an invention into a product or service that impacts society. Mm-hmm. So let's say a light bulb is an invention, but if you don't have electricity transmission lines, it's not impacted society. So it's not an innovation, it is just an invention. Right. So when James Watt discovered the power of steam, that was, let's say, an invention. But when actual factories were run on steam power and locomotives were run on steam power, deeply impacting trade and factory production, that became an innovation because it impacted society. Right. And that is what is called the first industrial revolution. It was a fundamental innovation, right? Similarly, the discovery of electricity, the second industrial revolution, and third, IT, and then we'll come to fourth industrial revolution. But to understand what is the importance of innovation, Yuval Noah Harari writes that in 1775, 80% of global GNP was from Asia, right. Safavid and Mughals and Ottomans and Qing and Ming. Shipbuilding, textiles, mining, peace under these empires, trade. Yet in 100 years, they were enslaved and colonized by Europe. What happened? So he says one word: innovation. Right. The steam engine, earlier than that, the Gutenberg press, and also the first company which took private sector investment for waging a war, which is the East India Company. Yeah. So this is the traditional importance of innovation. When transformation information happens or something bunches together, or Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum coined the term of these four industrial revolutions. What we see is that in the last 30 years or so, startups are the motif of innovation. Mm-hmm. Not government R&D, not academic R&D, not large corporations, it's startups. And who bring together the research from all these areas. And that's why the 5 most valuable corporations most of the time in the world are who used to be the 5 startups, which we all know, Apple and Google or /Alphabet and Facebook, Microsoft and Amazon, mm-hmm. rather than the situation 15 years ago when it was ExxonMobil or Citibank or General Electric or what have you. So these are startups. Now, for this ecosystem to evolve in Silicon Valley from the time of Hewlett-Packard, it took many, many decades. But the USA and other countries, China, India, Israel, they are trying to accelerate the creation of startups because they have become the engine of growth, employment creation. Mm-hmm. And that is where the concept of incubator came up. The first one was back in 1965. And incubators are experiments to create or accelerate startups, right? Now, 90% of incubators have failed.
Right.
So when we formed our National Incubation Center, we studied this.
Right.
We said what fails, what succeeds. Why did 18 incubators funded by the government of Israel fail? We learned some lessons from this. So we said lesson number one was that incubators need to be run by people who built great companies or helped or funded or invested in or mentored great companies rather than by employees. And that's what, by the grace of God, we were able to achieve in all our 5 incubators. We got some of the leading entrepreneurs, investors available in Pakistan. Whether that is Zuhair Khalik, founded a $1 billion company Mobiling, or Pervez Abbasi, who founded a $1 billion company Mobile Zone, or it's Atif Reis Khan, who's the founder, CEO of LMKR, one of the 2 leading unconventional hydrocarbon exploration and production software companies in the world. Or it is people like Faisal Sherjan, who's been an angel investor behind some good successes in Pakistan, or it's Murtaza Zaidi. So we really have a stellar cast. And other than that, we kind of analyzed and structured that at level 1, the incubator must have is like a co-working space, a networking space, which is architecturally impactful. Because the first thing is culture. And in our country, other countries as well, I guess, but there's negativity. There are a lot of naysayers, complainers. But when they come in, we want a visual impact where they start thinking differently. And they start solving problems rather than complaining about them. And they believe in their abilities and their imagination. So level 1, that's very important. And even before that, there's a level 0 of outreach and reaching out to get the right kind of applicants, right? For example, in KPK, there had to be, and same thing with Balochistan, there had to be an outreach with all the universities. And in the case of Balochistan, even tutoring them on what is innovation entrepreneurship and why they should apply. On the other hand, in Karachi, there were already incubators available, so it became more of an accelerator. So every NIC has a different character, right? So the first thing I talked about was level 1, and then even before that, level 0. Then at level 2 is the curriculum. How do you build a great company? Now, you can access curriculum online, but here we not only give the best world-class curriculum, but also we got mentors coming in and giving practical examples of Pakistan. And then number 3, people go out and build that piece in their company over the next week or 2. So for example, if it is marketing and branding, they will go out and get micro-influencers or bloggers. They will go out and implement their strategy and see what their monthly active users rise to or what happens. Or if it is team building those couple of weeks, then how do you go out and interview people, and how do you give them test projects, and how do you set up equity option structures to manage your risk? So they actually, only then do you understand how to do it. Otherwise, it's in through one ear, out through other ear. So we talked about the reaching out, we talked about the co-working space, we talked about curriculum. And then number 3 is the mentorship. Get the best mentors available, particularly vertical mentors. Number 4 is the coaching. The coaching, because usually what I've seen is that startups drift. They take on too much. It's so tough to build one business that they open 2 fronts. So for example, I talk to people and they say, I say, what do you do? And they say, I've got 2 startups. I've got a startup with 2 products, right? So I try to explain to them that if you'd asked Steve Jobs for the first 30 years, what he did was he said, I have 1 startup called Apple and I have 1 product, which is a computer, right? All the rest of the stuff, the iPod, the iPad, it came 30 years later when they were a $6 billion company. You can't, so if you don't focus, it's so tough to do something right. So what coaching does is, and we've got an MIS to monitor all these 6 levels. The feedback on curriculum, the feedback on speakers, the networking session, and so on. So what coaching does is, they say, what is your number 1 goal of the week or the month, and what is your number 1 goal, your number 1 problem of the week or the month. So if your number 1 goal is to open a new franchise, to hire somebody, to register your company, did you do it or not do it? Or did you get sidelined by some award ceremony or some whatever. So stay focused. Don't get distracted. And then what is your number 1 problem? You couldn't hire a coder, or you couldn't set up a meeting with the customer. And what is incubation management doing to help you, right? So we monitor that. And then the fifth level is the basic services that any startup needs, be that in marketing or be that in, let's say, design, in accounting, in legal, to have some good people available at a good price. And then level 6, which we are putting together again with the help of this MIS, is the alumni network. The best incubator in the world, Y Combinator, its founder and CEO, Paul Graham, says that their number one advantage is the alumni network. And that's why, Dropbox and Airbnb and Stripe came out of there. So through MIS, we are keeping this network, which is already 200 plus and, increasing by a couple of hundred every year. So imagine that power of networking in one place. So this was the thinking, behind incubators.
Very nice. So could you talk more about the 5 NICs that we just discussed? We already have covered Islamabad too on a very small level with Mr. Pervez Abbasi, but could you shed some light?
Well, first of all, really kudos to the NIC team led by Jawad Aswar. Because first of all, quite frankly, people were saying it will take 6 or 7 years to roll out 5, and we rolled it out in 1 year, 3 months. So kudos, and we did it in compliance with all PEPRA regulations. So we've not had an audit objection. So that output-wise, kudos to the team. Outcome-wise, actually, it was a question mark. Who knew what's going to happen, because it depends on so many externalities. But very, very pleased with the outcomes. For example, probably a rock star is Park Vitae out of NIC Lahore, raised 22 million. And 10 million people are going to have clean drinking water for the first time in their lives on a regular basis by 2020, inshallah. We have Fine Traders, which is a lady, one of 8 daughters of a driver. Somehow got educated, somehow got a job in a bank, resigned, pursued a dream, which was कि जो रेडी वाले होते हैं या डेली लेबरर्स होते हैं या दिहाड़ी पे काम करने वाले मजदूर होते हैं, उनके पास कोई पैसा बचता ही नहीं है. उन्होंने कुछ लेना हो, कोई बर्तन लेना हो, कोई शलवार कमीज़ लेनी हो, कोई वाटर कूलर लेना हो, कोई साइकिल लेना हो, महीने का राशन लेना हो, आटा, चावल, तेल, जो भी दाल लेनी हो, उनके पास पैसे नहीं बचते. एक्सक्यूज़ मी. सो ये उनको पे कर सकते हैं 50 रुपये दिन के या 500 रुपये हफ्ते के, and she will make this available. Now, that by itself is not much, right? But the point is, the lady generated 1.5 crore rupees of revenue last year, 31 lakh of profit, because she does bulk buying, and she just is about to accept a term sheet of $890,000 from a US based or connected venture capital fund, right? We have another lady designing a new jet engine, which eliminates contrails, these white line shaped clouds, which cause up to 20% of global warming. So she's also gotten funding of $200,000, and now she's setting up a lab. Then in Karachi, we have a gentleman who's, as you know, Pakistan is becoming dry. It's becoming a desert. Now, 80-90% of water is spent on irrigation. Now, this gentleman has come up with a product, Aqua Agro, which uses artificial intelligence and Internet of Things to reduce water consumption by 50%. Right? How does he do that? Because normally, for many crops, it differs crops to crop. But for certain crops, farmers just open the floodgates let's say twice a week. But he, through his IoT sensors, monitors the moisture. It goes into the cloud. His AI algorithm tells them when to open the gate. And now, let's say they do it every 8 to 10 days. So they're saving water, and it turns out increasing yield by up to 30%, because excess water strips away fertilizer and it strips away pesticides, right? And similarly, we have some exciting other companies like Baikia, which is a well-known company, helping them get financing as well. And they are, I think they are now hiring more than a couple of thousand motorcycle drivers for commutes and for deliveries. We have Sakoon, which is another very strong company for home provision of carpenters and plumbers and
simple low-hanging fruit that the people really capitalize on.
Simple low-hanging, but it turns out that some of these are just huge. I mean, for example, Thumbtack in the USA, Amazon Capital invested $100 million in that. Oh. And if you look at, for example, home dry cleaning, in India, the market is estimated to be $7 billion. So these look apparently small and simple, but if you can execute on them, these are huge opportunities. In Quetta, which one is so proud of, we have smart helmet. They have IoT and artificial intelligence to detect poisonous gas and the biorhythms of the miners and other environmental constraints and guide miners to safety. Because it's really painful. Thousands of miners die every year. And I actually appeared on television and I talked about this, and the Balochistan chief minister saw the program, which was Zara Hatke, and he just tweeted immediately, Gul Khan responded, and the Secretary Industries came in, and now 20 of his helmets are under testing because the government has to make it mandatory. Otherwise, the mining companies, they don't pay much. In Peshawar, some exciting companies. We've got Apris, which is the gentleman, son of a technician at Lady Reading Hospital. And he developed a electromagnetic surgery instrument, which kind of did what other German American instruments do, but better. He's now using AI to modulate the amount of current because people get burned. So this is used to remove tumors or lesions or block blood vessels. And it's already performed over 10,000 surgeries in 82 clinics.
Wonderful.
And another company there, which is an e-commerce company, Bera, doing Peshawari Chappal, they just got valuated.
They used to be our client.
Right. So they just got valuated through a funding from Islamabad at $1 million. It's out of Peshawar. So really, that was even more heartwarming. Then in Islamabad, you've already talked about Wais Abbasi, so I think Mocha.online and some of the other companies, the Agro Lab, exciting companies coming. So one feels very, very, very happy that these things have come about. And still there are many skeptics. I mean, there are people who say that it can't be done, Pakistan should not be innovating, let's just do IT services. Now, I love to support IT services, absolutely. Great for change, but we have to be positive and believe in our abilities. In fact, Paul Romer won the Nobel Prize in Economics last year for his work on the importance of innovation in developing countries. He says only those countries lift out of poverty who remove self-imposed limitations and old ways of thinking and old habits. So still there are these naysayers to battle. But, I think the innovation community is battling them, and inshallah they'll win.
So if I could just take a slight detour on this, so what kind of a psychology do you think it takes to, for example, the average Pakistani, jaise aapne kaha tha, there's this woman who lifted herself out of poverty to create such innovation. So what kind of a psychology do you think goes into creating such a person? Do they suddenly have realizations, or is it something genetic? What do you think in your experience?
Well, I think if we talk about human psychology in general, those people who are kind of, in my mind, in sync with their inner voice, whatever it might be, they rise to the top of their profession. Whether they are lawyers or doctors or in the army or whatever. We see other people floundering, changing profession, trying to find what is it, what environment, what people, what calling matches them. So I think generally the high achievers, whether it's in sports or professions or entrepreneurship, are those people who have enough self-knowledge where they're in sync with their inner voice. Because once you do that, it just multiplies your energy multiple fold, increases your motivation. You abandon fears or you overcome the naysayers, and you achieve things in life.
So, which brings us to the question of how do you define a successful, let's say if you have an incubator, so how do you define, well, first of all, how do you define the criteria for a startup that will be incubated or basically just qualifies for a startup? And then how do you define their success? Is it a bunch of criteria, or is it a certain amount of money that they've raised after which you could consider them successful?
Okay. First of all, like I said, there are many different definitions of startups. Yes. Pakistan Software Export Board has a definition.
Right.
They have certain things that revenue levels and so on and so forth. But generally speaking, our startups, I define a framework to you. But within this framework, people have flexibility. Right? Because we are not know-alls. All the intelligence innovation comes from the environment. So the incubator managers have flexibility within our general criteria on selecting startups. But generally, it has to be a person with some track record, and a person with an idea, and maybe the idea has had some traction. Whether in terms of product development, if it's really compelling, or even in terms of some customers. Generally, these are the things.
Right.
When I invest, by the way, used to invest, and now with our seed fund, one of the primary things is really character. That can you trust this person? Is this a steadfast person? Is it an open person? Because in the startup world, you got to be open. You can't hold things close to the chest, because that's how you get ideas, right? So it's character, then it's how well is the product thought through. Is there rigor, not only on the technical side, but rigor on the business side? Is the person aware of the decision points? Because it's at the end of the day, it's an experiment, right? And so we use the same criteria, by the way, just to jump a little bit to our seed fund.
Yes.
And we've had, by the grace of God, some great successes. For example, Electrocure, using artificial intelligence and IoT, over 1.5 years, they've saved 90% of electricity theft and line losses in MES Peshawar and MES Rawalpindi. And a Chinese company gave them an offer of $56 million on a profit sharing basis. But I presented it to the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, and the Finance Minister said that we'll invest in it because it's so compelling. The ROI is better than imported smart meters. So now it's being rolled out into Digiskills. Umar Ayub Saab, the Energy Minister, received a demonstration, so we are hopeful. And there are several others. There's Mera Maveshi out in Miyawali. You plug in the symptoms of cattle, it diagnoses the disease, tells you medicine. We've got Deal Smash, which uses AI to suggest budgets. They've also raised a second round of funding. And there are several others. I mean, I could just go on. I mean,
a lot of social impact there.
Yeah, we've got Wonder Tree, which uses augmented reality to solve neurological problems like autism, etc. Installed in 12 hospitals, including Aga Khan and Foundation Hospital, and remedied or helped about 80 plus children. So we have many others, and just to let you know, UNIDO, a United Nations Industrial Development Organization, has selected Ignite as the #1 government agency in the world for quote-unquote remarkable efforts in fourth industrial revolution, strategy, policy, and initiatives. So kudos to the team, for doing that.
That's amazing. Now, mashallah, that you've seen so many companies succeed, is there a formula to define why companies, well, not a formula, but perhaps there's some way to
heuristics. Yeah, so first of all, the difference between a startup and a regular business is that a startup abstracts. And for that, abstract critical thinking is needed.
Right.
What do you mean by abstraction? So let's say Chai Khana, great restaurant, great food.
Right.
Excuse me. Or let's say Bundu Khan out of Karachi. It was a great restaurant.
Right.
And I don't know if this really happened or it's an urban legend, but I think it's a great example that, it was the best grilled food in the country, right? So, but from Karachi, they opened one in Islamabad. Quality went down a little bit in Karachi because owner had to focus here. They did open something in Aptabad, and Islamabad shut down. Like I said, maybe an urban legend, but what it says is that scaling was very tough.
Right.
On the other hand, McDonald's has 12,000 restaurants around the world, and each one gives you a burger in 4 minutes. What's the difference? So McDonald's was able to abstract that what is the SOP for location? Eyeballs, traffic, socioeconomic class. How big should it be? What's the turning radius halls? How do you source buns versus fish versus lettuce and tomato versus ketchup? Right? Where are the quality checks? Where do you store it? Which kind of people do you hire? How do you train them? What about your MIS and your finance management system, your inventory management system? What about your franchisee fee and your franchisee partnership? They will to abstract it out. So that's one example. Telenor did it with Easy Pesa.
Right.
How do you send money from point A to point B anywhere in the country? They had to abstract and set up these khokas or whatever they call them, where it is profitable for the guy, yet he's transferring money. And what is the security around it? And how do we set up a bank around it? That had to abstract it out. Or, the great example of the iPhone. Now, so an iPhone is something which an 80-year-old Chinese woman or a 10-year-old Pakistani guy or a 40-year-old African or any American can use.
Right.
Think about the abstraction which must have gone into that user interface. Now, 86% of the technology in an iPhone was not developed by Apple. It came, whether it is the touchscreen or the GPRS or the storage or the battery, they got it from academia and government. So what was it that Steve Jobs was able to do? A, keep an eye on R&D. B, be able to engineer that R&D into a product that C sold. Usher Aziz did the same in FireEye. Kept an eye on the technology, got it from DARPA, architected a product, sold it. Now, but at the end of the day, just like we say, man proposes, God disposes. It's in the hands of God. Allah Ta'ala के हाथ में है. क्योंकि अशर अजीज ने जब बना लिया, कोई खरीद नहीं रहा था. 3-4 साल तो almost went out of business. But then some spectacular attacks, cyber attacks happened in the US. And now it's like one of the top companies, a $10 billion company. It's a go-to company for cyber attacks, right? So, so these are, I think, the core value chain. And then you got to leave it to God.
Right.
And then there are certain human traits, leadership traits, pulling people together, critical thinking, perseverance, which help you make it happen.